get to be the
Good.
prize. All right, if I can have all of your attention for a bit. Thank you all for coming. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jeanne's son Rick, and I would like to say a few hundred words about Mom. For those of you who do know me, I'll ask in advance for your understanding and forgiveness. Who was Jeanne K. Storey? She was something different to all of us. Mother, sister, grandmother, great-grandmother, aunt, cousin, and friend. I'm going to talk about my memories of my mother and the stories that she would tell. Mom was married to Richard Earl Storey on January 25th, 1947. But everyone called him Dick. She would tell me how they tried for 10 years to have a child. Mom was very spiritual and believed that God would grant her a miracle. Mom told me that finally on December 11th, 1956, God granted her a miracle. I was born. She continued to explain that I was only 4 pounds, 11 3/4 ounces. And she told this story with me with so much pride and motherly love. I felt like the greatest gift God ever gave to a mother. Mom said that what was on her mind, and she had no filter. She would tell me the story of how they named me. She said, "Do you know why you weren't a junior? Why we named you Richard Joseph and not Richard Earl like your father?" I, of course, was curious, so I asked, "Why, Mom? Why wasn't I a junior?" She said, "Dad was always called Dick, and I refused to have you called Dad also." I was intrigued, and I asked, "Why, Mom? Why, if it was good enough for Dad, why would you object?" She says, "I was not about to answer the phone, and then someone asked for Dick and have to say, 'Which one do you want, Big Dick or Little Dick?'" Now, of course, I was happy about that decision, and I think for obvious reasons. For those small children here, good luck explaining that one. This is where the understanding and forgiveness part comes in. Mom was not one to rest on her laurels. She decided to ask God for another miracle and try for another child. This time, it took God only 2.5 years to grant her second miracle. Jim was born. Finally, on June 28, 1959, she continued to tell me how that Jim was only 3 pounds and some ounces. I was only half listening because it wasn't about me. and how he had extensively stayed in the hospital because he was so small. Then the truth came out. Mom continued to say, "You know, Jim was premature, you were only immature." I know what you're thinking, that explains a lot. My miracle was just downgraded, and I had someone to steal Mom's affection. Not the greatest day for Rick. Mom was tough. Mom would ask me if I remember what happened when someone in the neighborhood pushed me off my tricycle and stole it from me. I had no memory of this, so I said, "No, Mom, what happened?" "Well, you came home crying that someone stole your tricycle, so I locked the door and I told you don't come home until you get your tricycle back." And with pride in her eyes, she said, "And you came home with your tricycle." She then asked me if I remember that, and I simply said no, but thinking that I was just too young to remember. But as I'm writing this, I'm wondering if I blocked it because of traumatic experience. Mom never quit. Not willing to press her luck and God with another childbirth, she decided to request from God a third miracle, but this time was to adopt a baby girl. This miracle took God 7 years. Now, this made me happy because this miracle took God more time than Jim's and less time than mine, and I felt I was back on top. Jeanne was born on March 12, 1963, at a whopping 7 pounds, 14 ounces. Now, that was more than if Mom gave birth to Jim and I at the same time. Mom was beaming with pride. She made Jim and I get into our monkey suits and stand in front of the judge and promise to love our new sister. Jim now knew how I felt when he was born. Now there was someone to steal Mom's affection. Payback's a bitch. Mom was frugal. She didn't have much money growing up, but we always took a family vacation. For many years, our vacation consisted of camping with the Bucks. Dad and Mom would pack the station wagon. Jim and Jeanne would leave, would each have a friend sleep over, and we would leave early so that we would be the first ones to arrive at Governor Dodge State Park and get the good wooden campsites. We would meet Uncle Lane, Aunt Pat, Terry, Kathy, Cindy, Sharon, and Patty for what I remember were the best vacations. You see, Mom's father, Simeon Casper, was part owner of a business, and they had lots of money when Mom was very young. Then her father lost all their money in the Great Depression. Mom always said that even though they had nothing when they were growing up, they appreciated the little things in life and the people that were around her. When we were teenagers, Mom decided to treat us to our one and only vacation other than camping at Governor Dodge State Park. We were so excited. With overwhelming anticipation, we asked, where are we going? The answer came swiftly. We're all driving to South Dakota to see Mount Rushmore, and each of us was ready to jump for joy, anticipating we were to stay at a hotel with a pool. And then she finished her sentence, and camp. Even though we camped again, it was still the best vacation because we were together. I have such fond memories of that vacation that Sue and I even duplicated it for our kids. We saw all the same sights, but instead of camping, we stayed at a hotel. And we threw in a bucket list of mine, which was to travel over a hot air balloon over Custer State Park. But other than that, it was exactly the same. Mom was generous and giving. All through our childhood and into our adulthood, Mom opened her home to anyone that needed a place to live. Mom and Dad even built an addition to accommodate anyone that needed a place. We had Grandma Storey and Aunt Holly live with us until they passed. Grandma Casper lived with us until she passed. Lastly, we had Aunt Marie live with us until she passed. I know there were more for shorter periods of time, but I just can't remember their names. It didn't matter. Her house was open to anyone that needed it. Mom loved everyone. She loved to party, and she loved to laugh. When we were growing up, our house was a place for the entire neighborhood to gather, adults and children alike. It seemed like Mom and Dad were always throwing a party for something. Birthday, Easter, Halloween, Christmas, New Year's Eve, the new color TV arrived. It didn't matter. Partying was in her blood. When Mom and Dad threw a party, we were told to go to bed and stay in our rooms. Well, what Jim and I heard Mom say was, I challenge you to escape from your room and try to spy on us. Now, of course, what could we do? We accepted the challenge. We opened the window in our room that cranked out vertically and climbed out on a 3-inch ledge that ran around the old part of the house. It would take us far enough to see the family room window where there was music, talking, a lot of laughing, and a room filled with smoke. Jim and I looked at each other thinking adults are weird. As I look back on this, I guess this exercise helped Jim and I build teamwork, because when one of us fell off that ledge, it was a bitch getting back up. Her love for partying was passed to each of us 3 kids. I remember every birthday party growing up was at our house. When I started college, Mom insisted on having a party for Halloween or New Year's Eve with our friends and Jim and my fraternity brothers. They were great parties, and Mom was right there in the middle, laughing, drinking, and having fun right along with the rest of us. I remember one time when Mom came down to SIU, she was sitting on the floor drinking with me and a few of my brothers when someone started to tell an off-color joke. One of my other brothers stopped him and said, "Don't tell that joke, Rick's mom's in the room." And I quickly replied, "Oh, I wouldn't worry about that. She'll probably outdo anything you can tell." even at the age of 89, Mom wanted to have another Halloween party like we used to. So we set the date. Jim and I invited the old gang, Bill and Jody Bradney, Mike and Betty Crowley, Steve and Bridget Olson, Tim and Sue Honori, Chuck and Brenda Schaub, Greg and Colleen Webb. It was just like the old times, except we were older, no one got drunk, and we were all in bed at a reasonable hour. Mom was easygoing. Mom rarely would get angry. If she did get angry, and she did get mad at you, it was forgiven and forgotten as soon as it was over. This statement is true, except for one instance that came to be known as the Great Brussels Sprouts Band. It was Thanksgiving, and Mom was busy in the kitchen preparing enough food to feed the 5th Regiment. Most of us were sitting at the table. Jeanne was at one end of the table where she always sat, and I was at the other end where I always sat. Mom had brought out some of the food. One item that was already placed on the table were the Brussels sprouts. There was some playful conversation while we were waiting for the main course when I spotted the Brussels sprouts. Not liking them myself, actually I despise those little bitter balls of cabbage. I decided to see if Jeanne could catch one in her mouth from across the table. It turned out that one attempt was not enough, as one of those little balls of cabbage flew in the air. Who do you think walked in the room to put more food on the table? Yes, Mom. Well, I have never seen the wrath of Mom like that day. Fire came from her eyes and smoke from her ears. She spewed words from some ancient forgotten language, and then finally issued her first mandate ever. From this day forth, Brussels sprouts will be forever banned from this house. Well, the clock stopped, silence fell over the entire town of Hoffman Estates, and all I could say was, yes, ma'am. Just like any other time Mom ever got mad at us, it was over in a few minutes. We knew she still loved you, and we enjoyed the rest of Thanksgiving. She never spoke of the incident again, and she never served Brussels sprouts. And to Dan and Jerry, who came to Mom's house for Thanksgiving and Christmas for as long as I can remember, this is where I ask for your understanding and forgiveness if you like Brussels sprouts. To sum up my feelings for Mom, when people say to me, after I've said something at an inappropriate time or joked, laughed, or acted like her, you're just like your mother. I take great compliment. I think it's the greatest compliment I could ever get. I would be remiss if I didn't also express my appreciation to Jim and Jeanne. Jim worked from home so he could take care of Mom in these last couple of months, and Jeanne came over and stayed every weekend to help Jim and took Mom to all her doctor's appointments. I would like to say thanks to my wife Sue for the support and help with the preparations. I would also like to express gratitude to all of you who supported us through this emotional time. We might have lost a mother, sister, grandmother, great-grandmother, aunt, cousin, or friend, but God got an angel. Now, if this eulogy was for anyone else, I would end on that note. But this was no ordinary person. Mom had 3 mandates about her funeral: a one-night wake with a closed casket, funeral mass, cemetery prayers, and a party with fun and laughs. She was so serious about having a good time at the funeral. Uncle Pete, Aunt Lois, Pete and Naomi saw Mom before she died, and she said to Naomi something to the effect, I will be looking down from you in heaven, and you better be laughing. So as not to anger her like the great Brussels sprouts incident, I will end on this note from the immortal words of George Bernard Shaw. Life does not cease to be funny when people die, any more than it ceases to be serious when people laugh. Say hi to God for me, Mom. What's that? Okay. And from the immortal words of Jeanne K. Storey, what the shit in hell are you doing still talking? Let everyone finish their dessert. Yes, ma'am. Jim and Jeannie and I would like to extend the invitation to everyone to meet us over at Mom's after the luncheon to continue the celebration of Mom's life. Thank you all.